And it seems to be that after death, so to say, this perfect space is provided as a place to live in. And many people, I think many people, of course, don't know that it's necessary to work through your life. They just offered a wonderful, perfect world, which they think is heaven. But there's no development. So they get stuck, so to say, without noticing. And this is, of course, the very high aim of the counter forces, to stop the human being in its development.
So let's return to the topic of transhumanist technologies as a means for Ahriman's incarnation. Like technologies like 5G or artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, transhumanist, do they differ from sort of old-fashioned technologies like a camera or a tape recorder? How do you think, how would you see that?
When looking super sensibly on any, let's say, technical device, we always see it is constituted out of the higher worlds. Otherwise, it would not exist. And then it makes a big difference for what purposes it's used. So, which means there are not any negative things you can do with a washing machine, as I would guess. So this quite harmless technology. Even you can think, well, this is an Ahrimanic idea that all these things are turning around, but it works. It washes well our clothes. But what we invent is very well observed from the higher worlds, as from the counter forces. And if they see that specific technology is useful to their aims, they so to say, they hook in. And with using this technology, we are then getting automatically the spiritual illumination out of the counter forces, which is most strongly the case with all the smartphones. It makes a big difference. In the time where we just had normal mobile phones, where this is a telephone, you can telephone with that from distance, and the new thing was you can have it in your hand. But still, we were using it as a normal telephone. But with a smartphone, with the possibility to communicate indirectly, we see that there is something that is pulling us in, that is giving us a specific way to look on our life. And we see just in the last maybe 10 or 15 years, we have lost more or less a kind of strong connection to the others. As in former times, when we just visited us, we rang the doorbell. Hello, are you there? Do you have time? And then we began to write. Then we rang the people. If you are, shall we meet? And then we wrote text messages if we maybe telephone. And so, we normally don't call the people anymore. So we stay much more at a distance. In former times, when we had birthday, the people were visiting us. And today they rang us, and we had a telephone call. And today we get a WhatsApp message, happy birthday, and with some emoticons with flowers, and so that's it. Yeah. And so and we think this is normal today. And this is what came through this elimination of the counter forces through this technology as a very good example. We need not to talk about, we will talk about 5G or artificial intelligence, but this is already a good example for how counter forces can come in.
Yeah, I think there are different levels. You can say with the invention of television, we lose our necessity to develop imagination as supersensible perception. So and instead of imagination, television. Then telephone, we should be in contact with the others telepathic, on a telepathic way. We should feel what what is going on with my friend also. But instead of to develop our telepathic skills, we use telephone. Okay, and we should learn to look into the Akasha Chronik. It's a memory, the spiritual memory of everything. We use now Google. So it's always that is a materialistic approach. We should it's a materialistic kind of our supersensible skills we do not develop. That's one level. Another level is there is a big difference between the old technology and the modern technology, because the modern technology, smartphone with mobile towers, then a lot of counter forces could enter our aura, and they are quite aggressive, and a lot of people experience that. If there are many people who are so sensible, they get headache if they are near a mobile tower. They cannot sleep if there is a WLAN on, and so on. There are a lot of people who really suffer of it, but they do not only suffer because there is electricity. No, they suffer because the electricity is possessed by spiritual beings. And that really gets harder and harder. And 3G was hard, but 4G is harder, and 5G is quite harder. And to go, and it's the same in the internet. If you have a search machine, that drains energy from you. But now with this artificial intelligence, we experience that you really get attacked. So it really gets harder and harder, and quite quick.
Mm.
So that the people and the society could not really understand what is going on with us.
Maybe to add something, also just to understand, because it's valid for very many things. So our etheric body, which contains our life forces, our etheric forces, is something very valuable. I mean, etheric, what is the etheric? So the etheric is the universal energy currency in the cosmos. Everyone wants to have it. So which means there are very many beings working through technology who want to take away our life forces, weakening us, which is something that we see also in 5G or in artificial intelligence. Even our spiritual forces, our I forces, our central core, our most valuable part of our higher bodies is in danger by that.
So explain how according to anthroposophy, how do you see what is 5G?
Main important is, again, what we already mentioned. Everything that is existing is constituted of the higher worlds, which is valid for everything that you can see, but also valid for everything that you can measure. Which means any kind of radiation, it can be infrared, can be ultraviolet, can be X-ray, can be radio wave, can be any electromagnetic wave, this is also constituted out of the higher worlds. And so when we look on the radiation that comes from the mobile antennas, first independent if it's 4G or 5G, you have an artificial life ether, as life forces, but artificial, pumped through the surrounding, which is taken in our own etheric bodies, weakening us. So this is not the life forces that is nourishing us by our food. So the main important part in our food is not the carbohydrates or whatever, but the etheric the life force that comes with it. And so we can even say that the whole air environment is poisoned by this artificial life ether. And I have to simplify. There are more levels, but in the case of 4G and 5G, very important is that this is the vehicle for that the counterforces hook in by implementing a spiritual levels on which they can interfere with us. So which means you're also taking in very high counterforces, which have a very strong effect on our thinking, which is also blocking us off from the higher worlds. So which means all that would normally comes in through our angel, through our crown chakra. So all that we had, this is so to say our foot in the door to the higher worlds, which means that the truth, the good, and the beauty. So we permanently, normally, are impulsated by these beings, and this is what many technologies want to prevent us to have. This is on the one hand the COVID vaccination. We already spoke about that. This is blocking us off, and this is also the 4G and much more the 5G technologies, which is then just leaving us alone with our mind and with hopefully our well-developed moralic consciousness to behave in a social friendly way.
I just want to for people who don't understand the etheric, this notion, this is a concept which goes back to ancient, to Greek. The etheric is sort of, so is it possible to say that 5G creates like a false ether which is overlaying? Some people talk about the matrix, that sort of we are no longer really experiencing true reality, but this fake reality is coming, or how, maybe just for someone who doesn't know what the ether is, if you can explain that.
I would explain it. Everyone can feel what ether is if we ask the question, how lively I am. Do I have forces? And you feel if you have forces and you are lively, or if you do not have it, if you are ill, normally, then your ether body, if you are ill or if you are tired, then your ether body is sinking, zusammenschrumpfen, is
Shrinking.
Shrinking. So it's not it's only a one word. You also can say prana. From India, it's the same. Or Chinese people, they chi. Japanese people, they ki. It's always the same. It's only another word for the life forces. And everyone can feel it, and everyone can feel it if there are a lot of life forces, because then you are nourished, and that's the reason why people go into the wood, because there are normally in nature are more life forces. If you are in towns, there are less life forces, and you lose your energy.
So 5G then is sort of like creating a false ether which goes between us and the real ether.
Yeah, and I would go on. If you behind 5G, there are beings, parasite beings, who are taking our energy, but not only the life energy, also our feeling, soul energy, and also our mental energy. So but it's possible. Everyone can do it. We also have done it. Looking to ourselves without 5G and then turning on 5G on the smartphone. And the effects was, but you have really to look at you, because if you thinking of and speaking and doing other things, then you are not aware. But if you are really looked at, so my experience is my ether body shrinks and hardens. It cannot really resonate. And in my soul, in my heart, it gets closer, and then I could not feel the flowers. I looked only as a picture. I could not feel it. If I looked to the flower, the feeling was gone. And also in my thinking, it was like clouds, like I could not clear thinking. I could not feel my thinking. And it was the same to meditate. It was not possible by concentrating on 5G really to come into a meditative state. So because everything is destroyed, and that is that it's quite important to know. If you can avoid 5G, it's quite important, and also if you go where you sleep, it should be all smartphones out of the room. It should be clean space. So I only wanted to give you an example, but you really have to look at it, and then it's normally if I do something in seminars, the people are really astonished, and because they can feel it, but if you don't look at it, you don't recognize it.
Yes, that's very important. Nowadays, some people move out in the countryside, and they chose places where there is not so much radiation from 5G. But the problem is that now it's coming from the satellite system. They're covering the whole Earth with satellites to have 5G everywhere, so there shouldn't be anywhere you can escape. So just Thomas, when you say this, it's maybe for some people it's a bit scary. You realize what this 5G is doing to us. It's really like, cutting us off from our spiritual faculties. Just, to say something maybe hopeful, can you find it something to stand against this 5G force? If you cannot perhaps go away from it, if it's coming to us from everywhere, from satellites, from towers, how can we resist it?
Yeah, I think there are three strategies. First, really to be aware and really to try to avoid it, how much it is possible, but you should go on with your life, of course. But you can be aware. Don't always carry your smartphone in nearby on and so on. You can turn it out. There are a lot of possibilities. First strategy. Second strategy is really to enhance your spiritual power. And if you meditate regularly, if you live in a healthy way, then you are quite stronger, and then it does not attacks you. And the third strategy, and that is quite important, to spiritual releasing of the beings behind 5G. So that means only with a prayer you can always send a prayer in a 5G tower, in a mobile tower. It's always possible, and you will and something will change, because behind all this counter forces, this bad forces, is the wish. They wanted to be released. They are not bad. In the end, they are not bad. They are not. They only crying for help in an aggressive way. That is, I think, important to understand. And it's possible to change it. We have often done it, and when we have done a healing session with a mobile tower, it's more relaxed. It's quite better. It's not possible to release everything and to change everything, but if it's 50% better, then it's better, and it's really possible. But it's really spiritual healing work, and that is so important in the future, because we cannot avoid it. How you said it, we cannot avoid it.
And yeah, so I often do this on seminars with my participants. So just to do very simple exercise. Take your Wi-Fi router and switch it off, and then just feel how you are, and feel how your heart is, how your thinking is, and are you able to pray? Are you able to meditate? And then switch the Wi-Fi on. And then see what happens with you. Thomas described that before. But then I always say to the people, and now try to come through. Nevertheless, you're all describing how horrible that is, but try to come through. And I tell you, everyone is able to come through. This is what enhancing the spiritual abilities is on the first step, very simple. Be aware of this hindering forces are there, notice that, and put something against that. If you are, the people are not trained. They just, hey, I'm trying to put more effort in coming through. It works. For us who are working professionally with supersensible perception, Wi-Fi is not a problem anymore. We just make like that, whoop, and then our consciousness space is free, and then we probably better don't have it, of course.
If we are really aware, but we cannot be aware every minute.
Right, of course.
And you go into a drum or in a bus. 30 smartphones are on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in every way,
it goes quite quick.
yeah. But if I just want to encourage the people to that everyone can notice that he has the force to overcome this or come through all these hindering forces, and just in being aware of and putting some effort in coming through, which just means we always have the possibility to strengthen our abilities to win that race against our spiritual freedom.
So Frank, if you then come into a subway car and it's like 50 people using smartphones and they have this wireless technology, and you sort of how in a concrete situation, then how do you manage that without being just sort of blocked by Ahrimanic forces?
Well, I'm working professionally with supersensory perception, which I don't do in the subway. And so, which means it is always according to the situation in that we are. Which means when I'm in the normal life, I keep my own space free, which is enough for thinking. I keep my heart space free. It is just a bit, and then you are able to feel again. And this is something you can always. Everyone can train himself, and if we are in a situation where we have to look supersensible because we are professionally asked, we need to enhance that effort, and then we can clear the space. Yeah. So that's always something we have to observe in a situation where we are looking supersensible.
Yeah, I would take it in such a way. You have to be aware if you feel that something is attacking you.
Yeah.
The problem is always if you are not aware and going on. But if you it's only in the beginning, it's only a smelling, because with your consciousness you are not there. But smelling something is wrong with me. But then stop. I have to look at it. And I have to counter it and have to do something. I think that is quite important. And then you can, it's possible to hold your space. And and second, if there is some time, a possibility, then I can try to spread out healing prayers in the surrounding. And also, if it's not really a deep healing process, only to spread out a healing prayer, and our Father in the surroundings changes a little bit the situation. I always feel it. Then there is a little bit relaxation. It was not a really deep healing transformation, but it was a little bit, and it was what I could do in the moment. So a friend, only one example, a friend of mine, she always had to go with train in Berlin, and she told us that she always was totally exhausted when he reached where they wanted to go, and she was it was hard for her to. She was a teacher to go into the class because she need to recover again, and then she started to meditate the whole train way. First, really strengthen their own connection, then going through bad emotions to make an emotional work, and then spreading out our Father, healing all smartphones around. And after doing this 45 minutes, she is coming out of the train with a really good energy.
Right, it's simple, but of course, the more you do, the better is the result. But just connecting to what I just said, because the people maybe that listen to our interview will say, what is with my heart sphere? So if it's also constricted, just the most simple gestures, soul gestures are effective. For example, just inviting the Christ into the heart. Christ, be the center of my heart. Christ, be the center of my heart chakra. And then already something is happening which is keeping the heart space free, which is not reaching all the other people in the subway. But if you in the first step, it can be, of course, be enough to have a good and safe feeling about yourself.
Yeah, so we are really living in a school. We have challenges to develop us. That is to understand. That is quite important to understand. Our life is not a wellness life. We have really to learn a lot of things.
Yeah. Another quote from Rudolf Steiner. He said that Lucifer and Ahriman would inspire us to develop technology that would provide a substitute for spiritual experience. And I think mentioning the archons, I think the archons is sort of Lucifer and Ahriman combined. It's both Wall Street and Hollywood, and so from the Gnostic perspective, I think artificial intelligence, especially super intelligence, which is approaching now, it's like the interface between these forces and the human being. How do you think Rudolf Steiner, how do you think he would describe artificial intelligence at its core?
Yeah, in the first, artificial intelligence is that the computer is taken over our thinking. So with digitalization, our sensory perception was taken over by the screens, and now our thinking is taken over. But important is to develop a self-thinking. That is what we should do. That is really this programs is, and we are nothing in the end. That is the main gesture, but perhaps you can explain it better.
Yeah, well, not better, but other aspects. I mean, in fact, this is the core point of this quotation, is that Lucifer and Ahriman, so to say, working together, which is really the case in artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. You have the Lucifer and Ahriman are working together here in, so to say, providing a technical space that is created out of everything you put in by yourself. It's a very delicate theme, and we're still researching a lot on that. So this is not we didn't find out everything on it, but our first impressions were quite shocking. Is that when using artificial intelligence, that in the spiritual world is created a kind of mental bubble containing everything that they know about us, which is a lot, because many people and many things are written in the internet in the meantime, or they put that themselves in the social media. So, and maybe also intimate things. And so when we look in the supersensual world, we see that for the people that exist, there is a wonderful world provided, which is containing everything they like. And so if they would go in, they could also have anything that they want. This is the land of milk and honey, so to say. And but everything's perfect. So there's no possibility to develop anymore. And the very delicate thing, and we're still researching on that, so we will just say it with this one, with some carefulness, is when a person dies, we normally have to face our life again, has to work through everything that happened. This is a hard path, a stony path to work on everything that was difficult in our life. And it seems to be that after death, so to say, this perfect space is provided as a place to live in. And many people, I think many people, of course, don't know that it's necessary to work through your life. They just offered a wonderful, perfect world, which they think is heaven. But there's no development. So they get stuck, so to say, without noticing. And this is, of course, the very high aim of the counter forces, to stop the human being in its development, for preventing that the human being is not only developing himself, but also the world forward. And so, and we see this can be a very, very big problem.
Yeah, what you're describing is very close to what some people would call the matrix, in which seems to be so comfortable, and maybe there is no fear, there's no challenges there. But as you say, in this reality, we don't develop any longer as spiritual beings. It's like a mind prison. So could one say then that the artificial intelligence at its highest level is like the interface between us and these forces and their mind, so to speak?
Yeah, it's now the highest level, yes. And my impression is, if I sitting for artificial intelligence, I'm immediately felt attacked, quite aggressive. So that means some forces, some beings are coming in my aura and want to do something with me, and it was really, I was astonished how aggressive it is. So I only want to, and then after meditating into the backgrounds, it's a hard background. I don't want really to tell more now about it. It's really hard bad beings behind. So yeah, but it's the same. It's the same. We have spoken about 5G. It's a hard challenge for our self-awareness and spiritual connection on one side. On the other side, it's a big task to redeem all the beings behind artificial intelligence. In the end, it would be necessary. It will be necessary.
One concept that Rudolf Steiner talked about, he talked about the eighth sphere, sphere number 8. Is that something which is related to this?
Yeah, of course. We are now have always spoken about the 8th sphere, but why does he call it 8th sphere? Because Rudolf Steiner describes the evolution of the Earth in 7 steps. You can read it in his book Occult Science, and he called it Old Saturn, Old Sun, Old Moon, Earth, New Jupiter, Venus, and Vulcan. But I don't want to go deeper in it, but that would be the 7 steps, would be the normal evolution of our cosmos, of the world. And the 8th sphere is everything who is fallen out of the normal evolution, is fallen out of the normal evolution. And that is the 8th sphere, but it's not a special place. It's a state to be disconnected to the to the spiritual world. When you are in the 8th sphere, in this, and we have spoken about it. Everything we have spoken about the counter forces. It's that how they try to draw us humans into the 8th sphere.
Mm.
Yeah, and all our aims is to enable human being to develop themselves, that having a contact to the 8th sphere is not a question.
Mm. And another concept that Steiner used is the doppelganger, that we have sort of a double. I know, Thomas Meyer, we did an interview about your book, COVID Vaccines from the Spiritual Perspective. And you said that this doppelganger, it's always sort of with us, but with the vaccines, with sort of entering into this transhumanist technologies and inviting them into our system, this doppelganger comes more to the forefront. So perhaps you could explain what is the doppelganger and what is the role of the doppelganger in the transhumanist era?
Yeah, the doppelganger are, it's an old German word, because that means here I am, and here is a double, and beside me, and what is the content of the double? Everything I could not integrate in myself, it's there. You also can say split of soul parts. You also can say shadow, old karma. That is all part of the doppelganger. And every one of us has a lot of incarnations behind, and everyone is carrying old karma. So that means everyone has to work with his doppelganger. And you also can think that this doppelganger is our connection to the 8th sphere. You mentioned it before. I would say the doppelganger is the part of ourself who is sitting in the 8th sphere. So, but our work should be to make him smaller and smaller, and to bring the shadows in the light in our heart, and to integrate it. So that is a main part of spiritual schooling, is to work with a doppelganger. Yeah, but if you have integrated the doppelganger, then you are more present in your I. You are more yourself. And in the end, what is the connection between the transhumanistic perspective and the doppelganger? I think they try that the doppelganger gets bigger and bigger and is taking over us, so that we do not live our own life, but we are controlled by fears, and the fears are normally part of the doppelganger. And the doppelganger, it's not only a personal doppelganger, we also have a family doppelganger, family shadow, we have a society shadow. And and you can look that this shadow gets smaller or get bigger. That is, you can decide.
Which is something that we can face in our all-day life. We always, in every minute of our life, we could have a look on ourselves and have a look how fearful I am in this situation, how conceited, how lazy or whatever. And then just to have the impulse of, oh, I could do this better. I just did it. And then in the next time the situation appears, you do something in a different way. Then you have already worked on your doppelganger. So it's simple, but the simple thing is difficult, as Goethe said. So this is, but this is how we all can be step by step on our path for a good development.
I wonder, we're so going to wrap up. Frank, I just wanted to come back to what you said. It was so interesting about the afterlife, and that sort of this Ahrimanic and Luciferian forces, they create a substitute. Some would call it the matrix, which can be sort of tempting because it seems that there we don't have to face any fears, and it knows so much about us. So it's a sort of can design some kind of utopia for us.
Yeah.
We are being seduced by this.
Yeah, the problem is that we are more and more in our society used to go the easy way. So we are not forcing difficulties anymore, or in more natural cultures, there was always a step between coming from coming to a boy to manhood. There was a challenge. Somebody had to do something, or from a girl to a woman. It was not just becoming older. There was a task, and so we lost that. And so usually things happening, and we decide for the easiest way. But practicing everything, as we just mentioned, spiritual path, practicing is always working on that. That is difficult. And as I said, the problem is that we lost that out of our mind. And then after death, I said we can't say yet it is like that, but we see these mental bubbles. And most likely this will be offered instead of working through our life. So which means what we can say is that it is very useful in every moment of the life, but also then to be aware of which decision to do. This is a temptation to go into that bubble and disappear for good, forever. Or to say, well, no, development means going a harder path, which is provided to us. We will see it after death. And then we have to decide for meeting our angel, waiting for us to guide us through the life of the after-death life. It's big difficulty.
I just wanted to also ask one critical question. You talk about Christ a lot. Christ consciousness is a very central idea of Steiner. What you mean by that? Because I think for me, for instance, one thing which I have, why I don't consider myself a Christian, I think there's a danger in the idea of the Christ as a salvation, because that's exactly what you talk about. You have a system of that wants to rule over people, and they create fear. You say you can go to hell and this can happen to you, and then you have a savior. You say you just allow everything to the savior and he will take care of all your problems. And this is something which has been used by manipulative forces for a long time. They use the notion of a savior, so you don't have to take responsibility for your own life. You can just hand over everything to the savior. So I know that's not what you mean when you talk about Christ. So perhaps in closing, you can just explain how you see this notion of Christ.
Well, you have to differentiate it strictly between what is meant by Christ and how it is used in all the religious institutions like the Catholic Church. So when we speak about Christ, we mean first we mean a being that is specific for a specific power. And as I said in the beginning, there is only one spiritual world existing. And all those beings there are named differently, are valued differently from all those different cultures and religions. Every religion has gods that are constituting universal love. And that's what we speak about. As I said, in Cambodia, the people have very strong Christ connections averagely, but they would call it completely differently. But it doesn't matter how the people call it. Thank God, the center of most religions is how to what's the right word? How to spread love to the world. And this is what is enabling us by that force that we call Christ. And so we see that the Christ, that there is, now I speak, and I mention, I name it Christ. So there is a Christ connection that goes through our heart, providing the warmth of our heart, so to say, enabling us to open, even as a child already, innocently, lovingly to the world, and that hopefully should stay like that. Often our environment is spoiling that in different ways, but this is, so to say, our normal status. And we also want to help the people in their development to be able to connect back, if they lost it, to the connection, to that power that provides this universal love, which is good for the person himself and for living in the society.
Thomas Meyer and Frank Burdich, I want to thank you so much for being on the program. It's a very interesting conversation.
Great pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Pia. It was a lot of themes we have spoken.
Yeah, it's a huge topic, and I think we probably could return to this conversation again. It's not exhausted in any way.
No. Thank you.
Thank you.